this has been a whirlwind sort of month for CM Punk, whirlwind week. So right after Thanksgiving, was it right after Thanksgiving? It was. He did a podcast with Colt Cabana, the Art of Wrestling podcast, which is a really good podcast if you actually listen to it. He does one now. Jericho does one. Stone Cold does one. It seems like all these wrestlers are getting the podcast.
I've heard the Jericho one was good, and I've heard the Colt Cabana one is good. I would hope that the
Stone Cold?
No, I've heard the Stone Cold one is good. I've heard the Colt Cabana one is good. I would hope the Jericho one is good, but I haven't listened to it.
So CM Punk appeared on the Colt Cabana podcast, Art of Wrestling, basically telling basically like a shoot interview. And Colt Cabana is his friend. It seems like lots of things go over, but CM Punk walked out of WWE after the Royal Rumble. He revealed that he was injury stricken, which when you look back at his matches late 2013, it was obvious he was moving at a much slower pace.
Right, and as anyone who follows wrestling knows, they don't want you to. They want you back in the ring as quick as you possibly can be. Yes. And he had developed kind of a mass on his back.
Well, again, this is all from his side, so this is his point.
He had developed a mass on his back, and I
think he said it was like right under his trunks or right at the waistline.
Yeah, and the doctors had cleared him. The company doctors had cleared him and hadn't really looked at it, but it kept giving him pain. And by the time he finally got it looked at, it was a MRSA infection. That's staph. That's important. That's huge. You know, the doctors.
That's a bad infection. That's a really bad.
That's an incredibly bad infection. I know people have had it. And the doctor said it's good you came to us now because you could have wrestled yourself to death.
Well, the later doctor said that, not the WWE.
No,
doctor.
I know, not the WWE doctor. The later doctor said you could have wrestled yourself to death with this infection. I've known people who have had MRSA and they've had to be put basically in quarantine. I mean, you're not allowed to do anything with this. I mean, essentially, you are to stay put until the antibiotic regimen takes it out. So, yeah, that laid him up for a while, and he decided he was going to take doctor's advice and actually take the time to heal up. But at this point in time, he's still he's still technically an employee of WWE.
Yeah, so CM Punk was never actually fired or quit from his point of view. After January, he was just taking time off.
Right.
He was still, by his perspective, employed. They never told him he was fired. He never said he quit. So what happened was, over the course of the next 4 or 5 months, it started with, remember that Raw in Chicago in, late February? We talked about that specifically. They trashed him. They called him a quitter. On pay-per-views, Stephanie McMahon has come out. Triple H have made reference to him being a quitter. All the while, he was still technically employed with the company, or so he thought he was involved. And then it turns out, and Vince McMahon confirmed it on Stone Cold's podcast, he got his termination letters the day of his wedding.
Well, I had heard that he had gotten a call from...
He got a text from Triple H.
Right.
Triple H is now the CEO of the company. And 2 days before, after he hadn't heard back forever, he texted CM Punk saying, hey, do you have time to talk? And CM Punk said, I'm planning my wedding. I'm going on my honeymoon. After that, I'll come back and talk to you day 1.
Right.
And then 2 days later, he gets a FedEx saying that you are fired on his wedding day, which is, wow. That's, WWE does some fucked up things out of spite. It comes to, but that's really bad.
Yeah, that's low.
Real. And I have a feeling that was Triple H and not Vince. I don't feel like Vince would want to do that and totally burn a bridge like that.
As Vince gets older, Vince mellows. A younger Vince probably would have done that, but I feel like I don't feel like that modern day Vince is sending people termination papers on their wedding day.
Yeah, the guy's in the 60s. I don't see him doing that.
I just don't.
So we're going over the map with it. So basically, this was not handled correctly, I think, from any perspective.
No.
CM Punk, and I said this to you in private, and you might laugh at this, and people listening might laugh. I see at least a little bit of myself in Phil Brooks. Just the fact that, and this goes back to my last job, my corporate job, I always was one to speak my mind about how I saw situations, how I saw people acting. Much to my own detriment, even if I knew it was the truth and others did, I always spoke up about things because I wanted to see things done right. But sometimes that hurts you in the long run because a lot of times companies don't want that. Even if the person saying it actually is steering in the right direction, they will spite themselves. They don't want to give control or power over to people they don't think deserve it.
Right.
And CM Punk is a prime example of that. Someone who speaks his mind and speaks up about earlier this year about it was Daniel Bryan's time. Batista should not be given the main event, and he was right about all those things.
Sure.
And that's what they ended up doing. They ended up rightfully giving the fans and Daniel Bryan what they deserved, is that he gets the WrestleMania title shot. And this is what CM Punk always was. He was always a guy that very talented, very smart, but maybe too outspoken for his own good and too brash. And so guys like Triple H saw it as disrespectful. Guys like Vince liked that. Guys like Triple H are like, no, you are a punk. That you are what your name is. You don't deserve it.
Right. And that's another weird thing about it. At this point, because Vince... I'm not trying to say Vince has done a face turn, but I do feel like as Vince gets older, he does look upon the younger guys a bit more favorably than he did, especially the ones who are coming up and are a bit more brash and up front. For instance, Sami Zayn. I feel like Sami Zayn's probably the type of guy that Vince likes. Why? Because Sami Zayn works his ass off. He's a good wrestler, and he's going for what he wants. Whereas I feel like Triple H is in that in-between era, kind of like where he sees, like it was in the Monday Night Wars and just after, he's at the age where he's seeing all of his power and importance slip away.
Sure.
And I don't think he likes seeing that go to the younger people.
And that was one of it.
Wrestlers.
One of on his podcast, CM Punk talked about that, and he was totally right. And when it happened, it bothered me. Back in 2011, at the end of the Summer of Punk, when he blew up and went mainstream after dropping the pipe bomb in Vegas, and CM Punk was the first sort of mainstream attention. It got me to watch wrestling again. I hadn't watched wrestling in 3 or 4 years before the summer of 2011. That got me back into it.
Sure, it got most people back into it. It wasn't me, I was later, but still.
So Punk was the hottest wrestler on the planet. Should have been pushed to the moon. Should have been like Stone Cold, 97, where he's just beating the shit out of everyone. What do they do? Triple H gets himself involved in a feud. He actually beats CM Punk in a match, even though it had Nash interference. It was bullshit. It sort of snuffed out at least a little bit of CM Punk's fire when he was the hottest guy going, and it was terrible. Did he recover from that? Somewhat, but it should never have happened.
No.
Never should have happened.
And I don't think he ever fully really recovered from that.
Should have never would have happened. He should have been the hottest guy going. It should have been, up to WrestleMania, main event. You know what I mean? And he called out Triple H for that, and he was totally correct. When you see Triple H get involved with stuff like Sting coming back, you see a little bit of that too, where Triple H can't totally leave the spotlight. He's he's like the new Vince McMahon, the authority figure. Just get out of the way. And so, a lot of things were said during this podcast. It was 2 hours. I implore you to listen to it. It's just fascinating. It shows you, though, at the end of the day, while CM Punk had valid complaints, at the end of the day, he has to realize that not just it's a profession he's chosen, it's a type of profession. Especially WWE, you are part of a traveling circus act, basically.
Yes.
That's what it comes down to. You're a part of a traveling circus act, and even though you're an independent contractor, which is bullshit in WWE land.
I know.
And that was I think that was one of the reasons why they actually gave CM Punk probably a sizable settlement, is because he threatened to sue them over that, and then that could have blew up in WWE's face. Where they could have been facing a union or
so quickly, for those of you who don't know, no one is actually employed by the technically
wrestlers
by the
aren't
WWE.
technically employed, even though they have things like no compete clauses, which for independent contractors is totally illegal. Stuff like that.
You are called an independent contractor so that they can avoid giving you things such as healthcare. But your independent contract with them comes with a bunch of do nots.
Yes,
and that's horseshit.
And CM Punk, I think, was threatening to sue him over that, and that's when they finally didn't get cleared up until the end of October. All this stuff.
I mean, and I hate to say this, but if you're a wrestler, I mean, this is your industry, and that's kind of my thing with Punk. I don't hate Punk, but at some point, dude, shut up. I mean, you made your bed, and you made your bed nicely, and you did things right, and you were in the right, you said the right things, you helped the right people, but you fucked over your own position, and now you have to deal with that. If you don't want to play by the WWE's rules, there aren't many other places you can go.
Sure. Oh, he could have went to New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Oh, I mean, he could have gone back to Japan.
TNA would have gave him a ton of money.
I just mean, if he wanted to wrestle for actual money in the U.S.
Well, this is where I like Punk. I like his attitude about these things, but he has to come to the table then and fight for things, because At the end of the day, when he was rushed back, when he said Vince was like, oh, he had multiple surgeries, his hip was messed up. Ryback gave him a bad injury. That's a whole other conversation. We can talk about Ryback real quick later. But at the end of the day, he rushed back himself. He could have told WWE after all these injuries he's had, bad rib injury, no, I will not come back early. I want to be healed.
Right.
And what's the WWE going to do? They weren't going to fire him because he was still the top 2 or 3 biggest people in the company. Right. They weren't going to do that. It was his decision to come back early. And obviously, it's really bad that he got this staph infection that he could have sued over this. This is probably another reason why they settled with him, because he probably could have had a really bad lawsuit against WWE for letting a potentially life-threatening injury go unchecked by their doctor.
Right.
But he should have had it checked out then way early, not let it go months and months and months. He's still an adult at the end of the day.
Yeah.
If the working environment's bad, you got to do something about it yourself.
Right.
And I think it's going to get better when obviously it hasn't. We're talking 2011. He almost didn't re-sign for these very reasons. That he hated how he was treated. So he said, "I'll give it the old college try and do it again." But when the bad stuff happens again, then it's on you. It's on you. The same shit keeps happening. And I had someone that complained about their bad job to me for like 8-9 years, and I'm like, dude, fucking leave then or do something about it. Don't keep if you keep complaining about it, nothing's going to happen. So you know what? The bad working environment, he said it wasn't fun, and wrestlers being treated like shit. If that was the case, if you really had the balls and you had the sort of internal strength, why didn't he then do this sort of class action lawsuit or go after them for this independent contractor stuff then? Why didn't he then? If that's really where his conviction lied, wouldn't he be doing not just himself but every other wrestler a world of favor by doing that? If he thought he had a good lawsuit and supposedly he hired a really good lawyer to look into that sort of thing, then he should have done it. If he had the conviction. But I don't think CM Punk, I think he talks a good game. Yeah. But I don't think he totally even himself believes all of it. Because a lot of things like, I'm not doing this for the money, blah, 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 but then money factors into it, and it's like, okay, what's going on here?
Well, his fucking... I don't know that I would like him much as a person, and I think he is a lot of talk, and a lot of that talk sounds right, but I don't know that he can back it up, I guess, is what it comes down to. He can say a lot of things, and he can say a lot of the right things, but I don't think he can back that up.
Sure. Lots of other things he revealed. Him and Ryback, the only guy he really went off on in a negative way overall was Ryback.
Yeah, steroid guy.
That was an unfortunate statement, just because you think that they test against steroids. Maybe CM Punk knows something we don't. But everyone looked bad with that. I think CM Punk shouldn't have gone after Ryback. Ryback was still very green. He's improved now recently when he's come back, but he's talking a year and a half ago, at least a year ago, more than that, very, very green. Still.
Ryback is still not great. He's green. I just think for Punk, you don't say so, it sounds so petty to go after someone. You go after the management, sure, in this interview, but this isn't actually a shoot.
It's not supposed to be a shoot interview.
Right, it's not supposed to be a shoot. This is not you just going off on everyone. And especially the steroid thing. I would watch my mouth very carefully when saying things like that.
Yeah, that's libel.
Exactly.
That's slander, not libel. Slander.
It's slander, because while I don't necessarily believe that the WWE always plays by the rules, there has been a lot of investigation into that stuff, and you can't, unless you have evidence that you're willing to bring forth, you can't say someone's roided up.
And plus, that might piss off other guys with big bodies like Cena, who, for all intents and purposes, has never been linked to steroids and just has a big body, supplements, and a lot of workout. You can get that big. It's difficult, but you can do that.
Sure.
So other guys like that, it's just bad for a wrestler to call other guys steroids. That was bad. But Ryback didn't come out of this looking good either, because Ryback's taking shots at CM Punk going back to January.
Yeah.
And Ryback had a very distasteful tweet. One of CM Punk's biggest problems with Ryback is that early on, I guess, in their feud, and this was after CM Punk, I think, had his ribs broken by Ryback over a kick. He basically went to Vince and said, "I don't want to work with this guy again. He's dangerous." Ryback gorilla press slam Punk onto a table from a raised position and missed the table, with CM Punk crashing down almost entirely onto the concrete floor, and he said really messed up his pelvis for a while. And then he went to Ryback supposedly and said, "Are you just stupid? Or are you doing this to me on purpose?" And Ryback basically, CM Punk Ryback claims, "I'm just stupid." Ryback actually tweeted a picture of all these Ryback's figures standing around a CM Punk figure, like broken up with like a table. Very distasteful. If I was CM Punk and I saw that. Next time I saw Ryback, there would be something physical going down.
Yeah.
Because even if he did it by accident, Ryback, and was stupid, you are putting your life into another wrestler's hands every time you get out there. And to make a joke out of something that could have killed Punk, you go look at that clip. It's bad.
Yeah.
I remember when that happened and thinking, oh, okay, but it turns out that falling 8 feet onto concrete on your back, you can't fake that. That's gonna fucking hurt.
Yeah,
you know.
You can make that tweet a storyline joke if Punk had come out of that okay, but if Punk actually came out of that hurt, that's disrespectful.
Disrespectful, really bad. I think WWE probably said to Ryback, "You better fucking tone your shit down." After we brought you back now, and they're pushing him big.
Well,
so Ryback,
he was nowhere, and now
he was
again.
nowhere. He was injured. Now he come back, and now he's being pushed out as his baby. Ryback, though, that was very disrespectful. I think to any wrestler to joke about seriously injuring another wrestler by accident is fucking messed up.
Yeah,
really messed up.
Yeah,
just as messed up, if not more, than calling a guy a steroid guy.